Hello, and welcome back to the Giddy Carousel of Pop, the podcast that takes an old issue of Britain's brightest pop mag smash hits and has a good nose through its pages with a guest. I'm Simon Galloway, and no, it's not a member of Hot Gossip, it's Hogg Gavin. You're all right?
I'm all right, yeah, just getting my spandex tights on and limbering up a little bit, ready for the podcast.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The pattern ones are particularly fetching.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Si? All good?
No, it's a big question, but I'll just give you a little insight into what's been going on in my head recently. Well, specifically this morning. You know when you wake up and then you go back to sleep?
Yes.
And that's sometimes when you're having the most vivid dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dreaming that I'd gone back to university. At the age I am now, so as a mature student, and I've gone to university in Brighton to study law. Don't know why.
Okay.
But several of the buildings were named after Hazy Fantasy songs. And I was trying to get a photo of one called Big Leggy.
Big Leggy Tower.
Yeah, and people were getting in the way. I thought, I've got to show this to Gavin. I've got to take a photo. And every time I took a photo, there was somebody's head in the way.
Blimey, that's a very niche Giddy Carousel of Pop dream right there. Oh, I wish you... Did you get a photo?
I didn't get a photo. There's always somebody's head in the way.
Oh.
Yeah, big hair and dreadlocks and
and big leggies.
Big leggies.
Holy Joe, that's all I can say.
Normally, I can't remember my dreams, but that one stuck with me all day.
Were any of the buildings shiny, or were they?
Well, they will have been, won't they?
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
In a Hazy Fantasy themed university.
That is amazing. What a dream. What a life you live, Simon Galloway.
And only in Brighton. Eh?
Yeah.
Only in Brighton.
Yeah, that's very Brighton, isn't it?
Could you get such a thing like that? So, enough of my scrambled pop head. So, before we set the carousel spinning in motion, Gav, what's the latest from the Coffee and Reviews hot desk?
Well, we've had a coffee from the lovely David Bruce. Thank you very much, David. Much obliged. And a review from Johnny KP66. Don't know if he's a big fan of the nuts, Johnny KP, I'm not quite sure. But a lovely comment from Johnny here. It says, as I walk through the drab scenery of post-autumn West Coast Sweden, with raindrops on my face and the cold wind trying to get under my coat, I still have a big smile on my face. Why, you may ask, and rightfully so. I am listening to my favourite podcast, the Giddy Carousel of Pop, transporting me back to a selected fortnight of the 80s, forever encapsulated between the covers of swingerilliant British pop mag smash hits. It's like punk never happened. What a review that is. Thank you very much, Johnny KP66. Much obliged.
Quite poetic, profound, and better than anything I could ever
say.
Same here.
But yeah, much obliged. That's very kind. Very nice of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, if you want to leave a review, you can do that. Well, it's the ones on Apple Podcasts that seem to get through to us. So please do, if you feel so inclined, leave us a review or click on the stars or something like that. And if you want to support us, you can do that too. It's very simple, and it can be just a one-off thing, or you can buy us as many coffees as you like, as often as you like. It's up to you. Just go to ko-fi.com/giddypoppod and chuck us a few quid to help keep the carousel spinning. So, Gav, what's occurring in the land of the carousel?
So, the carousel spins us back another 5 years from our previous resting place of 1986, and we alight on October the 29th, 1981. As Si cleans the carousel, he finds various items from our recent 1986 pit stop of pop. We find some of the most hated objects owned by Doctor, off of Doctor and the Medics, scattered all over the floor, and Martin Degville's fright mask has become lodged in the mechanism, causing the carousel to stop turning. I get on the blower to Funboy 3, but they aren't interested. They visit the fairground, but once arrived and Corat, they only care about researching the Tunnel of Love, which they say is for a future musical project. We're in despair and unsure how we'll ever get things moving again, when we suddenly discover a stowaway. It turns out that some young chap has hidden away so he could go back to 1986 in person. He wanted to write a book about the enemy's C-86 compilation tape and felt that your actual first-hand experience would be invaluable. Unfortunately, he fell asleep during Si's anti-86 rant and now finds himself in 1981. We could and should report him to the relevant authorities. There are very strict rules about this Ray Bradbury type of situation. We issue him an ultimatum. Either rid us of the fright mask and have a free ride, or enter the Time Traveller's Detention Centre. He leaps at the chance to fix things for us, and within an hour he emerges from under the carousel with a torn bit of fabric and declares, "Fright mask ahoy!" We like the cut of his jib, and we ask his name. Nige Tassell is his response. Nige, welcome to the carousel.
Hello, chaps. Hello.
Hello.
What an introduction. Wow.
Which horse would you like to sit on from the array of horses you see before you?
See, I'm not one for the carousel. I'm going round and round, really. I get dizzy and giddy quite easily, and increasingly so in later life. I have been thinking, and this is I was rubbish at physics at school. Would you get dizzier if you're on the outside of the carousel and you felt like you were going faster, or if you're on one of the inner horses but you're turning more circles?
That's
a little existential theory.
I'm thinking the further in you are, the better. So I think if you choose a horse on the inner circle...
You'd have to pull me away from the Dodgems and the Coconut Shy first, but I will, out of honour. I'll go on this particular carousel. It's all horses, and I'm not one for horses either. I have to say. Getting dizzy and getting on a horse is not my thing. But there is one that's actually a dog that's hidden on the inner circle. Okay. So I'm going to climb aboard.
You're going on the dog,
replica
on the dog
of my collie cross back at home. So yes, I'm going to ride the dog horse, if that's all right.
So here he is on the dog horse, very close to the inner centre pole. Nige Tassell.
That's very specific.
That's such a prima donna, I know.
So Si's going to flick the switch on the carousel, Nige, once you've answered the time-honoured question. It doesn't matter what the answer is, as long as it's truthful. Have you ever been sick in a gumboot?
No, I've never been sick in a gumboot. I've been sick a lot. As I say, with the kind of dizziness. I used to be horrendous car sickness when I was a kid as well. I also remember going to a fun fair, Valley Fair in Minnesota. I used to live in Minneapolis, and we'd go to Valley Fair, which you go past Prince's place, go in Chanhassen, and it's beyond there. And everyone else going, go on this ride, it's brilliant. And just feeling really rubbish and throwing my guts up straight away and the whole day being ruined. So never in a gumboot, though. Should I say this? As a jobbing sub-editor in a past life, I once was very nearly sick in the handbag of the editor of BBC Wildlife magazine. Put it that way. Yeah.
That'll do us.
It was the nearest receptacle, and but I did avoid that social embarrassment.
You wouldn't want to be cleaning that with the binoculars, would you?
And upon the truthful answering of that question, we begin to spin.
Indeed we do. As Gav says, the carousel has spun us back to the smash hits of the 29th of October to the 11th of November 1981, which Nige has picked out for us to peruse. And if you want to read along with us, you can do just that, thanks to the Light Punk Never Happened and Smash Hits Remembered websites. You'll find links to the scans of this issue in the episode show notes, along with Spotify and YouTube playlists that include pretty much all the songs and artists featured in this issue of The Hits. You'll also find these links on our website, giddypoppod.home.blog, and we'll post them on our Twitter and Facebook feeds as well. Just search for the Giddy Carousel of Pop or at Giddy Pop Pod. So let's go back to October 1981. What were we up to, Nige? What was life like for you in October 81?
October 81, I was 12, nearly 13, so on the cusp of my teenage years. I was in Old Money the second year of secondary school, year 8, I believe it is. And I was a football obsessive, but as we'll say, this was my first issue of Smash Hits, and this is why I've kind of selected it, because this is a real sea change. I was into music before. I used to tape the top 40 since about 78 onwards, so I was aware of it, Top of the Pops, get back in time from football practice to watch out on a Thursday night. But this issue in particular was when I headed towards music journalism, and when I jettisoned the football magazines. And we'll find out why. But yeah, so I was bespectacled, looked a little bit like the Milky Bar Kid, had hair then and lovely blonde hair. Football obsessive, but soon to become a music obsessive.
And what music were you listening to at that?
So up to then, ELO obsessive, and that this is a real sea change, because in this particular magazine we have the lyrics to Hold On Tight are in here, which was the last thing I bought of ELO. And then one of the major interviewees in this edition became my next favourite band for the next few years, definitely. I'll leave it there, mysteriously.
Yeah, I like that sense of mystery. Stay with us, listeners. All will be revealed.
What about you, Gav?
So late 1981, I'll have started secondary school, what's now year 7, like year 1 of secondary school.
Year below Nige.
And the year below Nige, would have been one of the slightly bigger lads in Solihull. Big Adamant fan. obviously just trying to find my feet in secondary school, because it's quite a scary place when you start. I seem to remember, and I don't know if it's just the way I've remembered it, because it seems like it shouldn't really be allowed. But it was the 80s, and it probably did happen. In the mornings, you'd have to put chairs out for assembly, so there was like a bit of a game. So the year 5 lads, so like the big lads, so you were like year 11s, the prefects would like round up, almost like press gang the younger children into doing it. And if they had to use a bit of physical force or whatever to shove you in, then they wouldn't. It was quite terrifying. You know, you'd arrive on the playground. It was almost like you were kind of fresh meat, like, or you like the Christians and they were the lions, you know, kind of coming to like round you up. So there was a lot of hiding from bigger kids, and just generally being terrified of big kids, being terrified of punks, being terrified of skinheads. Quite a violent sort of atmosphere, I think, in
very
those
tribal,
early 80s.
very tribal.
It was very, very tribal, yeah.
We had a lot of mods at our school.
Yes,
huge amount of mods in my village and the school as well, especially. You know, Secret Affair, Jam. Even though, you know, Jam were coming towards the end there, and Secret Affair probably had their 2 hits or whatever by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mods seemed to kind of. They didn't change with the wind, really. They seemed quite a permanent fixture going well into the mid-80s.
Definitely.
Sort of around ours, yeah.
Well into the
I think
mid-80s.
basically because they carried on being mods so they could get a scooter at 16 and, you know, and do the whole trip completely.
There was definitely a high Parker quotient on the playground, for sure. Music-wise, yeah, I was taping the charts as well. I just started getting smash hits sort of just before this issue, really. I think I'd started ordering it, and massive Adam Ant fan. And obviously this is a year or two before the Smiths kind of got big, so I was in a bit of a hinterland. Is that I really liked Adam Ant, but I was more Kings of Wild Frontier than Prince Charming, so I think I was still kind of looking around trying to find exactly where I fitted into things. But then once the Smiths broke, like 18 months later, then that was me.
I was within 2 months of this, I became a paper boy.
Yeah.
So I would get it absolute box fresh, that magazine, that morning on a Wednesday morning. So I would be at school by 8:30 with the new issue. So that may be marginally popular for a little bit, and it's stolen off me and then never seen again. But so that was quite a good thing as well, that I'd be kind of first in the playground with that.
Yeah,
I quite enjoyed that.
Bragging rights.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Si?
Well, like you say, in a bit of a hinterland, I think that's where I was as well. Going through this issue, normally, you know, the songs that spark memories or, you know, something, and I'm not getting very much coming through. But thinking back to that time, my dad had we'd got a stereo tape recorder the year before, Dixon's own brand boombox sort of thing. But by this time, we'd got into the separate system in the living room, a proper full-size tape deck. The only thing was that the turntable was at one side of the fireplace, and the tape deck and radio and amp were at the other side of the fireplace. And it got this automatic turntable. So you'd, if you were making a tape, and I made lots of tapes.
You did.
I did make a lot of tapes. So I'd have to, you know, you'd have your tape recorder on pause at one side of the room, one side of the fireplace, and then the other side of the fireplace, you'd be getting your record ready, right? So you'd click the button, and it'd start lifting up, and then I'd run across the other side of the room, listen for it, because there was a speaker each side of the room, so I'd listen for the needle going onto the record, and then let pause off. Wow. Yeah. So it was quite a physical activity. Running from one side of the room to the other. I was just recompiling all the records that were just, you know, hanging around the house. But what I did find, you both mentioned tape in the top 40, and that was obviously something that happened in our house a lot as well. But I was just searching on Mixcloud just to see if there are any people have started uploading old radio shows to there. And I found the top 40 from the Sunday before this issue came out from Radio 1. 90 minutes of it is on Mixcloud. So I've been listening to that as I've been driving over here today.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably one that we would have had on, because quite often on a Sunday, we'd go out for walks in the countryside into the Peak District, and I was driving through the Peak District to get here. Yeah. And I think it's the one that features Oh Superman by Laurie Anderson. So I'm pretty sure that was in the charts around about this time of year. And I remember sitting in the back of my dad's larder. There were so many of us that I had to ride in the boot. I wouldn't get that now. I was in there with the dogs. But I remember this song coming on the top 40, and my dad from the front of the car, from the larder, like, bloody hell, do you call this music?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Someone's rubbing on the front tyre.
Yeah, he probably did think it. What's that noise? Yeah, so that really sticks in the mind. Also on this top 40, there was When She Was My Girl by the Four Tops, which was the last brand new single I bought of 1981.
Okay.
And it was, I think, a new entry in the chart that week. So the rest of the records I would have bought for the next few months would have been ex-jukebox ones or ones from the market. We used to go to Sunday markets and things like that. So I'd always be digging through boxes of records there. And I was only 8 years old, but it was my life.
And you've not changed?
Not really, no. And in terms of Smash Hits, this was a period where Smash Hits wasn't in the house. My sister had stopped getting it because she was into rock by then, or heavy metal, as they used to call it back then. So lots of AC/DC, Meatloaf, Gillan, who appears in this issue of the mag. And it was about 18 months away from when I started getting it again, but for myself. So, yeah, in terms of Smash It, it's a fallow period. It wasn't in the house. So let's get stuck into this issue of Smash Hits, shall we? On the front cover, the Fun Boy 3, Terry flanked by Linville and Neville. Their first Smash Hits cover as Fun Boy 3, although 1981 did begin with Terry on the cover of Smash Hits that year. And he appeared on the cover quite a few times in the first half of the 80s. And of course, we're only a few weeks since we lost Terry Hall, which was kind of very surprising and very sad news, and I think it was quite affecting for us in here, and I guess other people of a certain age. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to that feature. But also, the issue promises, and it's quite a minimal cover. Not any big headlines on there. It's just Smash Hits, Fun Boy 3, Julian Cope Q&A, Japan, Human League, Beatles and OMD in colour, hit songs by Police, Gillan, Squeeze and many others. That's it. And you don't need to know much more than that, do you?
It's a really nice cover. There's really nice symmetry to it, and the masthead being in yellow and green, the colours of Norwich City at the time, as I probably have described it, and West Bromwich Albion's away kit of the time too. But yes, I think it's really really nice and simple and very clear. That would have stood out from the newsstand in my newsagents.
Because sometimes Smash Hits covers a year or two later could sometimes be a bit over fussy and sometimes using fonts that were difficult to read or colours that were difficult to read on the background. But that's, like I say, it's just nice and straightforward and very enticing to a young pop kid for sure.
So we turn the page, and before we get to the contents, we get the lyrics to the first song in the issue, The Police, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. And I do remember at the end of this song when Sting and Co going EO, EO, like that. Yeah. So in Sheffield, and I don't know how far this spreads across the north, but another phrase for stop it, like stop doing that sort of thing, is give over. Yeah. Give over, will you? Yeah. And that'd get abbreviated to Gio, will you? Miss, tell him Gio, stop it. that kind of thing. And it used to drive me mad. I used to, because it always ended up sounding a bit like a donkey or something like Gio. That sort of thing. And even back then, I thought that Sting and the Police were singing Gio, Gio, like stop it, give over. And it used to drive me mad. It still drives me mad to this day. I hear it 42 years on. It was like, Gio, stop it.
Even though you know in your head that Sting and Co aren't from Sheffield.
They're not from Sheffield. And I don't know whether, Gio would be a phrase in Newcastle or not. Yeah. Who knows? So let's have a little look at what other songs are in there. We've got The Lunatics Have Taken Over the Asylum by Fun Boy 3, Labelled with Love by Squeeze, You Don't Believe Me, Stray Cats, Tunnel of Love, Dire Straits, Twilight, ELO. It wasn't Hold On Tight.
You're right, it was Twilight.
It was Twilight.
Oh, God, sorry. Oh. Bad research.
Oh, dear.
Bad journalism from me, sorry.
Same era, though.
But it was the last single. I know it was the last single, so it was Twilight. Yes,
yeah. But underneath that, Hold Me by B.A. Robertson and Maggie Bell.
There we are.
There
That's what was happening.
That's
What was happening.
Conflated.
I've conflated.
ELO and B.A. Robertson. I mean, I don't think, nowhere in the world could have handled that much hair. Jeff Lynne, B.A. Robertson, can you imagine that?
BAELO as well. Yeah, what an acronym that would be. Yeah.
And then She Kissed Me, Gary Glitter. We'll just move quickly on from that one. Dead Cities by Exploited. Nightmare by Gillan. Tonight I'm Yours, Rod Stewart. Physical, Olivia Newton-John, even. Paperback Writer, The Beatles, as the,
Request spot
thingy. Gloria, U2, Charlotte Sometimes, The Cure. Then there are features on Funboy 3, obviously, being the cover stars. Girls at Our Best. 3 of them are blokes, it says here. Julian Cope, as we know, Reader's Q&A. Japan on the British charts at last. And then those posters, a Human League. They've got the Beatles in colour from 1966. Japan and orchestral manoeuvres as well. And then all the other stuff that we normally get in Smash Hits.
So, turning the page from there, we come straight away to the cover feature, Funboy 3. Mark Ellen talks to the newly formed band, kind of splintered off from the specials. And we don't get a great sense of animosity, just a sense of Terry, Linville and Neville just wanting to move on to new pastures, really. Let me read the introduction to the interview from Mark. It says, exit the specials as we know them, enter the Funboy 3. The front line forms a splinter group. The rest remain undecided. They can carry on as the specials. They may not. Could this be, if we're going to get nostalgic for a moment, the end of the golden age of two-tone? Well, that's out of our hands, really, is the Funboys 3's official line. That's for Jerry Dammers to decide. And Jerry isn't talking. In fact, he's even taken his phone off the hook, presumably because he's got nothing definite he wants to talk about. The same can't be said of Terry, Linville and Neville. After almost a year of planning behind closed doors, their excitement about the new project is mingled with an obvious sense of relief. Even the normally sombre Terry seems fired with enthusiasm. The split didn't come out of a mass fight or anything, he reflects. Nothing nasty happened. I just got really bored of being part of the same organisation for 2.5 years. So he talks as well about feeling a bit kind of, I suppose, a bit disillusioned and feeling like there was, he talks about being on tour in America and being like a lot of road crew that he doesn't know, and it sounds like he's just a bit fed up about the size that the specials have come. I guess this is on the back of Ghost Train being a big #1 single, and suddenly the little band that they were in has become huge. They've just kind of had enough and they want to move on to new things. I should have mentioned on the left of the interview as well, there's a story so far of two-tone starting from 1977 and going up to 1982, where there's just a big question mark because we're yet to see what the preceding year is going to have for us. Nige, were you a big fan of two-tone and the specials?
Certain singles. I bought, we're saying, how we had lots of mods at school. We also had lots of kids in Harrington jackets as well. And there was a lot of crossover. A lot of the mods would have the specials and the Who on their coats that they'd write in Tip-X or marker pen. I think what's interesting, you say how the Funboy 3 was a year in sort of gestation and planning, but 3 months prior to this magazine, they're #1 with Ghost Town. So they'd obviously already had enough at that point. It wasn't just, we're not going to better the Ghost Town, let's go out on a high. It's 9 months before they were already talking about this because the single's out, so they've clearly recorded this single before Ghost Town is #1 or around the same time. So I think that's quite instructive as well. It's not that we've peaked there and we cannot, let's move on to something else, which is quite an admirable thing. It's that even if Ghost Town hadn't been #1, Funboy 3 would still exist.
Yeah, it feels like there's maybe Shakespearean levels of plotting behind the sscenes because, like I say, they were a tight-knit group, and then so for them three to have kept it secret all that time, presumably they kept it secret.
And I think there's a really telling line from Mark in the piece as well, where he says the trio began getting back to basics, fed up with the fact that when composing for the 9-piece specials, there was always a guitar or a trombone or something that felt left out if it didn't get part of the action. So it's keeping 9 egos or mini egos in check. Going, I haven't got a guitar solo on here, or Rico hasn't got a trombone solo, and therefore if you're putting all those elements in, you're going to sound like the previous singles. There is probably a limited shelf life of keeping all those 9 musicians happy, and so yes, I thought that was quite an interesting thing, that you've only got 3 people to keep happy if you slim down by 2/3.
No, that's interesting what you say as well about the music. I thought that was a really interesting quote, because the music of Funboy 3, you can kind of hear certainly elements of the specials in there and like Ghost Town stuff, but it's quite an odd beast, isn't it? Their music, it's very stripped down, very sparse. It's kind of just really kind of drums and voice for a lot of it, isn't it? And
well, certainly the early Funboy 3 stuff is like completely based around the drums. But I think it's also, if we look back at Terry Hall's career now, we can see that was the beginning of the pattern. He'd do something for a couple of years, move on to the next thing, do something different. He was a very creative person, but a bit of a restless spirit, I think, and always just wanted to be exploring something new.
Well, there's another quote from Terry in this, which is a hilarious quote. You can admire people like the Rolling Stones for just staying together, but everything else about them is irrelevant. So at that point, they're not thinking of the Stones being innovative musicians or songwriters. They're thinking of them as a legacy act then. And this is 42 years ago. If you told Terry Hall in 1981, that quote is going to still be relevant, and with a band being in their late 70s, 80s, that's quite ridiculous. But the whole notion that 2 years is a long, long time for him in the band. But I think you're right, Si. He does, not whether it's boredom, whether it's just the creative urges to do something else. But also, The Lunatics Taking Over the Asylum was the first single, and it's pretty dirgy, as a mission statement, as I say, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Our Lips Are Sealed is far stronger, or The Tunnel of Love, or something. But this is not obvious single fodder, I would suggest.
But I guess it's a good follow-up to Ghost Town.
Yes,
if you see it like that.
It's in that same same time signature. Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And they talk about the music that they play at home, the musical influences, Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, Public Image Limited, African Beat and Jamaican Calypso. It says, stuff that begins life fairly normal but in unskilled hands, which I think is a little harsh maybe, turns out a little weird, a bit like Terry's new haircut. In fact, I love this bit where he's talking about his hair. He says, I go to this bloke who always cuts it badly, he adds, tapping a forehead that resembles the rim of a large plant bowl with leaves flopping over the edge. When he does it, he keeps the top bit brushed back. But when I get outside, I brush it all forward again. If you could see me walking around like this, you'd have a nervous breakdown.
But now, of course, all the hairdresser needs to do is walk into a newsagent's and he will see it in full glory on the front page of this particular edition.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah. I think there's another interview. I remember another interview at the time, and I thought the quote was from this interview. It's not, where he asked, what do you ask for when you go for a haircut? He goes, I ask for a Terry Hall. Because by then, this is probably a later interview, by then everyone knows him. Yeah. He's got this, the pineapple haircut.
I did think that the two-tone story that's on the first page of the feature by Fred Della was a little bit negative in a way. He was sort of like just pointing out, the bands releasing singles and then going elsewhere or splitting up. But I think that was part of the aim of Two Tone, was to do these almost like one-off singles, one-off projects, and then it kind of, the band would move off somewhere else. And Madness did that, and The Beat did that. So I think that's more of a positive thing, because that was the aim of Two Tone. None of the bands signed contracts with the label, as far as I'm aware. It was just like, Jerry Dammers was really excited about this music and wanted to get it out there. It's a bit of a launch pad. Whereas this piece, I think, focuses on the demise of Two Tone right from the beginning of the story, rather than its successors.
Yeah, a lot of the comments it talks about, this was the lowest chart placing to date, and the not so hot this and that, and this sank without a trace. Yeah, you don't really need to have that interview. It does seem a little overly negative. Not to
such a negative degree, or whether that's just feeding into the creation of the Funboy 3. I don't know.
And also, we talked earlier on, Si, you mentioned about the sad news that we got about Terry. I mean, I found it affected me more than I kind of thought it would, really. When I heard the news, I was really, it was a mixture of absolute shock and also being really quite upset about it for a little while. And it was nice to see all the tributes online and be reminded of just what an amazing career he had. But I think it caught a lot of people kind of by surprise, just how much actually Terry did mean to them, and perhaps without us even realising, like when Bowie died, obviously, that was kind of shocking as well, but I think we all knew how much Bowie had meant to us, and I think with Terry it felt more like a bolt out of the blue in a way, do you know what I mean? Of like, God, he really does mean an awful lot to our generation.
And he wasn't old, but he didn't look old either. No. I think that's part of it. He looked like recently, you could say a man in his early 50s, he looked very much in the middle of middle age. as well. So I think that's that shocking element where people who live longer, obviously you can see a more physical change, but most recently would have seen a guy looking in pretty fine fettle.
How did you feel about it, Si?
Similar sort of thing. It was just like, can't quite believe it. You don't realise how much his music has been a part of our lives over the last 40 odd years. I know I've certainly listened a lot more to the specials, Fun Boy 3, Colourfield in the last 20 years than I did in the 80s. It's one of those where, when you're a kid, it's just pop music that's on the radio. But as you get older, you start to appreciate it more and you realise how extraordinary something like Ghost Town is. I've banged on about that sort of thing before, and I won't go on about that again. But yeah, and like Our Lips Are Sealed is one of those songs that I get obsessed with certain songs, and that's one of those songs where I'll if I listen to it once, I have to listen to it quite a few times before I can move on to another song, because just everything about it I just absolutely love, and there's so much going on in there. Yeah, it never feels overdone or anything like that. So yeah, his music, without knowing it, I think has played, certainly for pop kids, played an important part and a big part of our lives. But so we might not necessarily have recognised that, and sadly, it took his death to have that realisation.
Yeah, he was like the cool older brother, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he was great.
We skip on a few pages and we come to a section just called The Pictures. And it literally is just a few pictures, but the first one is an Anton Corbijn photo of Grace Jones with an accordion, 1 foot up on a box. Quite a striking pose. I mean, that's what Grace Jones was very good at. Toying with that musical chest expander is Grace Jones, reads the caption underneath. Outrageous darling of the disco set who recent unveiled, and I think that should be recently unveiled. God, proofreader. Her new invention, disco theatre at London's Theatre Royal. Called, with typical mischief, a one-man show, it was a real cocktail shaker of music, posing, theatrics and athletics. She started off in a gorilla suit, dispensing with a band. She sang lustily to backing tapes and taunted the audience. Something rotten. The star-studded crowd, Try Midure, Brian Ferry and Elton John, loved it. But I think the real kind of dominant photo.
There's only one highlight on this page, isn't there?
I mean, there's 4 photos. So, underneath Grace is a photo of Joe Strummer with Rankin Roger from the Beats, and then next to Grace is a photo of the Killjoys featuring a pre-Dexys Kevin Rowland. But underneath that, it's a man called Gary leaning on his MG with the bonnet painted with a very detailed illustration of Toyah. And bearing in mind this is hand painted, is this an album cover that is recreated on here? I'm not fully versed in the works of Toyah or her sleeve work, but the caption underneath, what about this for devotion then? Gary Price, who drives a post office van by day, became so enamoured of one Toy Wilcox that he decided to dedicate the bonnet of his car to her. He reckons it took about 150 hours of pallet pushing to finish the fantasy landscape. Undaunted, Gary now wants to visualise every song on Toyah's Blue Meaning LP. Anyone with a spare Mark II Cortina?
That is just incredible, isn't it?
It is quite incredible. Gav, you did a bit of digging on this.
Yeah, well, I found a colour photo of it on a Toyah website, but there wasn't much more information. I was thinking there might be a way of tracking him down and seeing whether he did there might be like a whole fleet of Toyah album covers riding around somewhere, but I couldn't find any more information whether he did more. I was thinking it's almost like a really early kind of Redbubble shop. You can go online and get like album covers and stuff on phone cases or pillowcases or duvet covers or whatever, and his was just very niche, very specific, and it'd just be like, no mate, I just do car bonnets, and like, oh, can you do this Adamant car? No, just Toyah.
Just Toyah.
I just do Toyah and I just do it on car bonnets and that's it.
Yeah.
Now else.
Well, I did a bit more digging on that ToyahNet website, and it says about that car bonnet and that photo, one of the famous Toyah bonnets by Gary Price.
Okay.
This was the first one, an MG from 1981, and apparently he did numerous others over the next couple of years. He got stopped by a policeman in the early hours of Christmas Day 1981 while travelling home from the Theatre Royal Drury Lane Good Morning Universe gig. And When I Want to Be Free was in the charts, kids used to dance around the car at traffic lights. By spring 1982, he was on the dole and working on a portfolio to apply to go to Chelsea Art College. At this time, he couldn't afford to run the car, so it was kept in a garage. By around mid-1982, Gary was working on a third bonnet and was planning another 2. He was hoping when they were all complete that there would be a photo session done with Toyah. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. The first bonnet was in loads of magazines and on Nationwide, and Tiz was.
Blimey.
So he attracted quite a lot of attention with his,
amazing, yeah.
with his artistic handiwork.
It went viral before we knew what going viral was, but it never got Toyah down for that photo session.
Why? It's a mystery.
Hey!
But it's quite remarkable. I'm just wondering whether he did it in situ or whether he takes the bonnet off. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whether he's kind of leaning, because it's so perfect, it's so
It's
detailed.
amazing. Yeah.
It can't be that he's leaning across it. It must be that he has it on some sort of slightly curved easel or something.
Yeah,
It's quite incredible. Very incredible, yeah.
Then we come to RSVP. I think this is the earliest instance we've found of RSVP. In all the issues of Smash Hits that we've looked at thus far. So October 1981, not quite sure when this started, but there's lots going on in this one. So if you want a pen pal, who would you write to? Anyone there, Nige, that you would have written a letter to?
The one particular, mainly because of music taste, Sharon Mitchell from Saltash in Cornwall, would love to hear from males who hopefully live in Edinburgh. Despite the fact she lives in Cornwall, not ideal, but she likes orange juice, Talking Heads, Oxfam shops, and hates wire coat hangers. And 12-year-old me, well, wasn't into girls at all at that point, but, a couple of years later, that she may have appealed, but certain Talking Heads and orange juice, that would have ticked a couple of boxes for me.
And also a dislike of coat hangers.
Yes, yeah. I mean, of all the things to dislike, 1981, quite troubled times, and wire coat hangers are the real evil in your life. You're not doing too badly. I mean, the whole point of this as well, you probably talked about this in general in past ones, but RSVP. I mean, another acronym comes to mind: GDPR. Because everyone's home addresses, the home addresses of these young people are there. You can go and knock on their doors of this. It's dodgy. It's really, that's the really alarming thing that breaks off this, that that whoever, S. Morrison, lives at 5 to 7 in Edinburgh. Now, that was a bit of an eye-opener, really.
I think Sharon might have been my dream girl, although she was too old for me. I think a couple of letters below her, just the penultimate letter. My name is Sarah. I'm 16. I'm into Japan, Visage, Human League and Soft Cell. All ant people. Hello. Or new romantics are brill. Drop me a line. She lived in Wolverhampton, which wasn't far from me in Solihull. So, I mean, I was 11, so I doubt as a 16-year-old she'd have been particularly interested in me. But, as an ant person, I might have been in with a bit of a shot and been a pen pal.
That's the one that appeals to me, but at this point I'm half her age, so definitely not going to get
child. I'm also interested by Jane Paul in Wigston, Leicester, and how she's contractually obliged to be nutty about madness and bad manners, etc. There's no other adjective you can be.
Yeah.
You have to be nutty.
And she says, if you're as nutty as me, write to. So yeah, she likes that.
Yep.
Yeah, the opening letter, 2 girls, Sheena and Gillian, would like to write to 2 boys aged 15 plus. Must be into Newman, Duran and Depeche Mode. Must hate modern heavy metal. Interested? And there's a few others. Dislikes Heavies and Teds. Like most other music except heavy metal. So it's that running theme that you get. These are pop kids then. They're not metal kids at all. But there's a couple of people who've put a bit of effort in, shall we say, to what they've written. David Bowie is the interest. Weird clothes is our nature. Bowie is our hero, and way out hairstyles is our fascination. Want to know more? Then write for an explanation to Ern and She. And they're in Sudbury in Suffolk. Next to that, in the next column, Gary Newman is my desire. Pen pals are what I require. So if you're a nice person and have nothing against Mr. Newman, see, that's where the rhyming ends. If you're a nice person and have nothing against Mr. Newman, do write to me pronto, please. My name is Jackie, and I'm aged 16, and she's in East London.
Yeah, Gary Newman. A lot of people like Gary Newman in this one, don't they? He gets mentioned quite a lot. I think for as many people hate heavy metal there's as many fans of Gary Newman in this. He was very much riding the Giddy Carousel more than anyone else at this point, I think.
Call themselves Numanoids or Futurists.
Yeah, the Futurists before New Romantics had been invented.
Yeah. But yeah, you'd think some of the Numanoids could actually link up together. That they, on the page, you go, well, hold on, that works and that works. Yeah. Like the way you used to watch Swap Shop and you go, no, hold on. He wants Crossfire and he's got Sputio, come on. You know, it's in that sort of way, yes. Yeah, but I wonder, you know, I imagine you've wondered whether, you know, like Blind Date and people who get married from being on Blind Date, whether any people did get wed and any people are in the world because of their parents meeting via the pages of GDPR, as we should now call it.
Okay, we move on to the next page, and we've got another regular feature, another half a pager, this time a Get Smart. And in terms of the questions in this one, sometimes we have some very bizarre, very niche kind of questions. This is more like we're just wanting Smash Hits to be Wikipedia of its day, really, just kind of asking for information.
It's kind of discography heavy.
Yeah, I would say. It really is.
It's like going on Discogs.
The first letter I think is really interesting. I watch and enjoy Top of the Pops every week. Where can I write to get tickets to go to the studio? Which is a really good question, because you think it was on every week, but there's never an address at the end saying, this is what you need to do.
And everyone's always really jealous of who's there.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. So Jane Burton from Walton Cross has asked that, and Smash It's right back to have your name put on the waiting list, right, with an SAE, that's a stamped addressed envelope, kids, to TOTP, Ticket Unit, BBC, blah, blah. At present, the wait is just 2 years long.
Wow.
So it's amazing. I was thinking, if you were like a pop kid in 81, thinking, oh yeah, this Funboy 3 group, they seem really good, I'll ask for a ticket now, and then obviously by the time you get round to being in the Top of the Pop studio, you'll be watching, I don't know, Paul Hardcastle or post-true Spandau Ballet, or, you know, something you're not bothered about. So yeah, it's a bit of a lottery really, isn't it? I think it was such a long wait. Was there anything in there that caught your eye, Nige?
One in particular, I mean, everyone asked nice, polite questions, but I love Margaret Bankovitz from Airdrie. She couldn't even be bothered to ask a question, turn it into a question. Altered Images, discography and fan club address, please.
Very to the point, isn't it?
I know there's a please in there, but, you know, there could be a bit more social graces there, but fair play. Again, another discography. And the fact that, you know, people couldn't look up. You know, it's so ingrained in us how to find information. But back in the day, you go to your local library for information. Obviously, the small discography at this time of Altered Images isn't exactly the content you'd find in Encyclopaedia Britannica. So it needs an outlet. So it is performing a service, definitely.
Readers also asked for the names and 4 ages of Depeche Mode and the singles that they've had. Someone else wants to know the highest chart positions reached by the Susie and the Banshees singles. What's happened to Ruts DC? Have they split up? And then there's some Discogs heavy questions about Teardrop Explodes, who we'll be getting on to fairly soon, about what happened to certain missing numbers of the catalogue. But yeah, all queries dealt with in a comprehensive and perfunctory manner. So Pop Kids have had their questions answered. Okay, so we go past a half-page advert for Penthouse and Pavement by Heaven 17, the new single. Funboy 3's new single, using a similar picture to that was used in the interview. The Lunatics have taken over the asylum. And then, sort of an unusual choice for Smash Hits, we get one page on Girls at Our Best, headline Girls Will Be Boys, bar 1, referencing the fact that there's one female in the band. Interviewed at the time of their debut, and it turned out to be their only album. Mick Stand, who's not a writer I think I've come across in the past. Is he?
Well, do you think it sounds a bit like a made-up name?
I think it might be, Gav. Mick Stand?
I never thought of that!
Because I was reading it, I'm thinking, I've Googled it, I can't find anything about a Mick Stand anywhere. So I just thought, you know what? I Googled it, couldn't find anything. What do you do? And you know, who's going to know about Mick Stand? Hepworth and Helen, of course. So I dropped them a little line.
At least.
Yeah. David replied within seconds. Mark, early this morning. So they both got there. But yes, it is a pseudonym. So Mark said it should actually be Mike Stand and not Mick Stand. And if you see, there are some reviews later on attributed to Mike Stand and not Mick Stand. And if you look on Rock's back pages, you will find some features written by Mike Stand. But yeah, so Mark says, Mike Stand, not Mick, it was a tortuous pun. And David said, Mike Stand was a Smash It's name of Phil Sutcliffe. Used because Sounds, who he also wrote for, wouldn't permit him to write under his own name. Think I made it up.
Oh, wow.
So there you
we go.
It's Phil Sutcliffe from Sounds.
I've worked. We had magazines I've worked for. Philippa Page. Was everyone used it? That was the communal one, and so Philippa Page got a lot of posts, because there was various PRs going, "Oh, is Philippa in today?" Philippa, no, she's not.
No, not seen it today.
But yeah, Philippa Page was a good one. But yeah, Mike Stan, very good. I didn't realise it was Phil Sutcliffe though. That's quite interesting. Yeah, very good.
No, I genuinely had no idea. I was like, I've never seen that name before in here. I wonder who that is. Oh. I was such a fool. But at least I didn't write to Dave Hepworth and Mark Allen asking them, because, that would have been even more embarrassing. There we go. So, and photographed by Paul Slattery. So we're talking about their debut album, and Phil, or Mike, or Mick, starts the piece saying, "It's 4 feet across, bright red and yellow, and looks like a bizarre altar. Plumb in the middle, just where you'd expect the Bible to be, there lies the sleeve of the Girls at Our Best debut album. Actually, it's a shop window display unit, and at £165, the most expensive piece of cardboard I've ever laid eyes on. In the basement of Happy Birthday Records, it was serving as a doorstop, but in the chain stores, it will be competing with similarly extravagant promotional paraphernalia, featuring more familiar faces such as the Police and Meatloaf." Amazing. For a moment, we all gaze at it in awe, as if it really was a holy shrine. Then we laugh. But Judy Evans, Girls at Our Best singer, proclaims, "I'm fascinated with the idea of selling yourself. Everything is consumerism." So there we go. Girls at Our Best were kind of an indie band from Leeds, and a lot more kind of art school than the kind of bands that you generally get in smash hits, even around this time, but managed to grace the pages of the hits with a page. So we get a bit of biography about previous bands they were in, a band called the Butterflies, and then they got played on John Peel, sold 7,000 copies of their song Girls at Our Best, which they then used as the title for their next band. And there we go. I was thinking in terms of the style of their music, Nige. Obviously, you've recently had a book out detailing the Enemy compilation cassette C86, which it kind of gets misremembered a little bit in that people think it's all jangly twee pop music, and there's obviously bands like Bogshed and similar kind of noisy bands on the Ron Johnson Records label, but the C86 sound is that kind of sound. And in many ways, I think kind of Girls at Our Best, would you say they're kind of precursors of what became that indie jangle pop
Definitely,
sound?
the jangle sound did not, we're talking the day after David Crosby has passed away as well, and someone tweeted yesterday, without the Byrds, does indie pop even exist? So the whole notion of jangle just coming along in 85, 86 is nonsense, You think about all the postcard stuff in 81 or whatever, 80, 81, and Girls at Our Best kind of fit into that. And Smash Hits to me at the time was really interesting because it still ran the independent charts. You would still get, we've got The Cure later on. The Cure weren't a top 40 band at that point either. There's still a lot of alternative. Because the writers, some of them were former Enemy writers. They're not. Smash Hits at this time is kind of quite a lot of different things at the same time that it wasn't maybe later when it's full on Jason Kiley, bright pop, because a lot of the pop this time came out of the post-punk scene. So Adam and the Ants coming out of the punk, Culture Club coming out of all of that. So a lot of them have these alternative, they all lived in squats, coming out of an art school scene, like Leeds one especially, with Gang of Four, the Mekons, Squitty coming out of that, Soft Cell coming out of that, really potent one, and Girls at Our Best at the same time. It kind of makes sense that they're there, but also I think its presence as an interview might have something to, call me an old magazine cynic, might have something to do with the full-page ad that appears later in the magazine, and that being part of the terms and conditions of taking said advert out. Call me cynical. I suspect if that ad wasn't taken out, there's no reason that Girls at Their Best would have percolated to the top, because they weren't at the top of the more independent bands at that time. But fair play. And I have to say, Judy's cheekbones are just astonishing cheekbones. They are just, I remember looking at this picture back when I first got it, and just, she's quite astonishing looking. She could be a pop star in a very kind of, a less alternative kind of way, And certainly I wrote the lyrics down as well, which, not the greatest lyrics, I have to say, and put me in mind of a band who kind of came sort of a year later. These are the kind of lyrics that Toto Quilo, the i.e. Cannibal hitmakers. This is the lyrics to Waterbed Babies. Water babies in the sea, water lemons are for tea. Waterbeds are made for me, they make my mouth water. So whether they're making a real attempt to be real pop stars, having fairly nonsense lyrics, these aren't lyrics that are going to please the kind of NME bunch. I don't know. Maybe that's what they thought. Let's go out all out pop, but didn't really make that either.
I mean, any fool knows that opal fruits are the things that make your mouth water.
Exactly,
watermelon. Yeah, not
don't chew on a waterbed.
Although she does have a bit of a proto-Bananarama look about her.
Yeah.
Yes. No. Yeah, definitely. Yes. Which again, Bananarama, coming out of the punk scene as well. They're all quite alternative people that then become these pop stars in 80, 81, 82, before soap stars sort of became them. A bit more careerist as opposed to people having a bit of fun and escaping the ghetto of being alternative types, I guess.
But for some reason it just didn't happen for Girls at Our Best.
Despite the exclamation mark, they didn't excite people quite enough, I don't think. No.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot about how good-looking Judy is,
yes.
which you wouldn't have like in a magazine today, I think, because from after we kind of get the sort of potted history of the band, then it says it's quite clear that the most instantly distinctive girl is the girl, Judy. Her voice soaring above what James describes as the band oying away is high, pure and jolly, like a girl guide singing pop, or a choir boy soprano on the edge of breaking. Out of innocence, perhaps, strange even to Judy, and it talks a bit about the sound of them. And then it says, then there's a face. When I say something hesitant about Judy being good-looking, in quote marks, the blokes chorus, us too. So all right, she's beautiful, knows it too. People have always told me I was sexy, at least since I was 12. Okay. It was frightening at first, though, and then it kind of talks about her becoming more comfortable with her looks now, and then using the kind of talks about the sensual tenderness of some of the songs, and including the song that Nige's just referenced there. I mean, I guess of all the bands covered in this issue, the Girls at Our Best have probably got the clearest direct line to the bands that you cover.
I mean, at the time, this is the year of C81, which was the first NME cassette, so that was a lot of rough trade outfits, so Squiddy Politti, Robert Wyatt, and a few others like that a lot of people, people talking about the book, a reference to the book, and I preferred C81 myself, but a lot of the people I talked to really like C81. A lot of the musicians on C86 loved C81 because they were about that age then, the right age for it. And they all thought that was what C86 was going to be like. It's just like, a quick snapshot and it will disappear, and a footnote to history, and no one will know. And, you won't have someone poking their nose, knocking on their doors 35 years later going, yeah, that tape? Oh, bloody hell, not again. I want to talk to you about it. But yes, so they all thought, yes, it's going to be just, okay, this will go out. It will help us a little bit, but it will disappear after 3 months and no one will. It will just collect in people's attic. But C86 itself, becoming a subgenre of itself for whatever good reason, whether it's a straitjacket or a springboard for them. That's the tenor of the book, really.
Moving on, we get to Bitz. There's news on Elvis Costello, Hazel O'Connor, The Police and Paul Weller, Chaz and Lee from Madness talking about their respective push bikes and scooters. Smash It staffer Bev Hillier gets a toy and nail paint set, and there's an introduction to ABC.
I like just one quote from Martin Fry on the ABC piece. We want to do with funk what the Police did with reggae. Which and I didn't really kind of see ABC as funk. There's funk undertones, but there's still larger pop outfit. But what I found going back through this, how much funk was current and big. So you've got early level 40. We had ads for early level 42, big full pages for Lynx. Imagination would have big ads as well. Freeze being, funk seemed more of a. It didn't feel like a standalone genre of itself. It was just something that was there in the thing, but the amount of people referencing funk or saying they're a funk band, and Spandau at the time, they would be too. That's what really kind of hit me, because you don't see funk is just a kind of almost a continuum. It's not like a standalone. It's not like a mod revival. It's not like New Romantics. It's just kind of always there. But yeah, it was quite interesting to Martin's quote that he aspired to having the cultural impact of the Police, which is kind of quite a strange, because the Police used to get really slagged off for kind of,
white reggae.
The white reggae, So it's quite weird for someone as smart as Martin to make that reference and liken his band to them, because I wouldn't have said that was necessarily favourable.
This would have probably been the first time that it appeared in Smash Hits as well. So this is almost like a manifesto, an open statement. And I thought that it didn't quite strike the right note in terms of what I know of ABC. Certainly would never in a million years have likened them to
because when we think of Lexicon of Love as well, which obviously came out not too long after this, and we never think of that as a funk album. It's kind of just a classic pop, isn't it? Sophisticated pop album of its time.
Yeah, I mean, it does have
there's elements of funk in it,
it's more like the chic disco sort of Nile Rodgers sort of guitar.
But you don't think of it as a funk classic, do you? The album as a whole at all. Sure, there's elements of funk in it, but it feels like here, as Nige said, that he's really kind of pinning his colours to the mast there, the funk mast.
The funk mast.
He needs to get off the funk mast.
And he adds the quote as well, which it says, that means making funk acceptable to everybody. And it's like, well, is it unacceptable?
Yeah, I think it kind of is.
It's not like he's trying to reinvent it or rebrand it. And it's like, well, is that necessary? But it's very strange.
I wanted to mention, because this was something I didn't know anything about, and I'm quite a fan of the Jam and Paul Weller, but it talks about the third and final edition of Paul Weller's December Child Poetry magazine is currently in circulation. He says he's going to do something different next time, so this is your last chance to grab a look at the old format with its collection of various original verse and essays. The cost is 70p, including postage and packaging. It seems like a good deal, doesn't it? And then it talks about what the Jam are up to next. I looked it up on eBay. Issue 1 sold fairly recently for £36, so a lot more than the 70p it was. And they listed it as original and very first issue of a great artistic modern punk fanzine with poetry and features on authors, actors, painters, etc. New wave and electronic music artists covered, such as Anne Clark, but also psychedelic like Syd Barrett. Includes original poetry by the Jam's Paul Weller. Some of the poems have copyright Paul Weller 1979 and also Weller 1978. So there we go. That was something I wasn't aware of, and being someone that's very keen on a fanzine, I was like, ooh, I never knew that. Turning the page, we've got a whole full page for Adam and the Ants' new album cassette, Prince Charming, featuring hit singles Stand and Deliver and Prince Charming. $3.79 that'll cost you at HMV on album or tape. And then another full page ad, this time for Gillan's Double Trouble. And then we come to ELO, or EL No, as they were soon for you, Nige, with Twilight.
They were entering the twilight of my appreciation of them at that point, yeah.
What did Jeff Lynne ever do to you?
Oh, it was fine. And he took me from 1977, 78 up until 81, you know.
Have you come back round on the ELO carousel?
I've not. No, I haven't. But I think for a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, it's terrible I'm saying this, but they were a good in that meant I kind of sidestepped prog pretty much, so I think I didn't prefer, although my appreciation of ELO was because I confused them with ELP, and I've only realised this in recent times that a particular ELP song, the Common Man thing, I thought was ELO, and that's what I based on buying my first album being an ELO album, thinking that was them, and it wasn't. It was ELP, and so I mistakenly became an ELO fan, but happily didn't go down the bumpy road of prog.
Oh well, that's good.
Emerson, Lake and
of course, who could only recruit a drummer whose surname began with P. Yeah. So they had to have Cozy Powell after Palmer departed.
It's a shame Keith Harris didn't hook up with Emerson and Lake, and it could have been ELO, but a very different ELO, Emerson, Lake and Orville. Now that would have been good, wouldn't it? Prog Duck. There's a new genre. New genre for you.
Oh.
I wanted to talk about Dire Straits' Tunnel of Love, because of the very long video. Well, it's a very long song, about 8 minutes, which, if you've not seen, is quite hilarious, with Leslie Ash climbing up a ladder to some... It is an egg pod. It's not the Egg Pod podcast, but climbing up there.
I mean, it's all very kind of 1980s, like Vogue fashion shoot sort of looking thing. It's actually, I thought, quite a stylish video.
For Dire Straits?
Yeah, for Dire Straits. They're not in it very much, which is commendable. They're not doing the acting part of it, again. Blessed relief for that. And they do a lot with the little footage that's in the video.
They make a little go a long way, don't they?
They do.
Mark and the boys. Yeah. I wanted to talk because the song is kind of about fairgrounds, and obviously we're currently on a fairground.
We are.
And I was going through, I was like, when's he going to mention Giddy Carousel? Is it so? It says, getting crazy on the waltzers, and I've been riding on a ghost train, where the cars, they scream and slam, and the big wheel keeps on turning, neon burning up above. These are all different lines from the song. Come on and take a low ride with me, girl, on the tunnel of love. And I was thinking, is he going to mention the Giddy Carousel? And then finally we get a mention. It's like Mark Knopfler looked 42 years in the future, and he suddenly thought, I need to give them boys a little thumbs up, a little shout. And he says, and now I'm searching through these carousels and the carnival arcades, searching everywhere from steeplechase to Palisades. It's like a little tip of the hat from the head-banded plank spanker himself. And I was very happy when I read that we got a mention on there. So did you look through for a mention?
I did indeed.
I thought you might.
Note the carousel mention there. I thought, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. So I just want to say, Mark, we noticed, we appreciated it.
Didn't mention the coconut shy, though, did he?
No.
We move on past the Girls at Our Best whole page advert. Which,
the thing that opened the doors for an interview, I reckon. Yeah,
quite possibly. Yeah. Quite possibly. And then onto the singles page, reviewed by Dave Rimmer. And there's a really nice mix of stuff in this. Quite a lot of funk in this one, which I'm sure we'll come on to. We get positive reviews for ABC. We get Single of the Week with Tears Are Not Enough. It says, against stiff competition in a fortnight of fine and funky singles, this one wins by a hair. The vinyl debut of the latest in a long line of incredibly hip Sheffield bands. This is a funk attack on all fronts, from the thumb-slapping bass and the pounding percussion to the fluid horn runs and the stroppily soulful vocals. Passionate, intelligent and proud, with a defiant dance rating. ABC inspire optimism for the future of Brit funk. Great. So again, referencing back to what Martin Fry was saying about kind of reinventing funk and then probably... in all the subsequent singles that came after that, there probably wasn't an awful lot of talk about funk, but it's here in spades. Dave gives a dance rating to every single. Some of the other songs he talks about where he gives a positive review. Pig Bag, he gives them a dance rating of frenzied. Scritti Politti, get a thumbs up from him. Bits and Pieces, get the dance rating of deadly. And a singer I'd never heard of before called Werner Lindt, I think that's how you pronounce it, which I really like. That gets a thumbs up from Dave as well. Funboy 3, their new single, The Lunatics Have Taken Over the Asylum, which we talked about earlier. Again, another positive one. He says, a decidedly odd little ditty from the 3X specials, a mess of percussion and Middle Eastern noises with lyrics referring to Reagan, Thatcher and imminent nuclear destruction. Occasionally sounds like the Lunatics have actually taken over the recording studio, but does have its own peculiar charm. I can't dance to it. So there we go.
It's kind of damning with faint praise, bearing in mind that the cover artist does have its own peculiar charm. Okay, yes.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, as I was saying before, it's or maybe I think it was you, Nige, was saying it's maybe not what you'd imagine for a lead-off single from a band, but it does kind of work its way into your head. A few negative reviews: the Scados or the Scardos, Annie Anxiety, Saxon. Dance rating for this was Crash Helmet recommended, and the Police. Dance rating, I tried to dance, but I dozed off. Anything in there that appealed to you, Nige? Any of the reviews or any of the singles that you particularly liked?
Well, you just get a sense of the quality of writing in Smash Hits, and that's what introduced me to really engaging writing. You know, I wasn't someone who would have read Nick Kent or Paul Morley at the time in NME, too young for that. But the fun that used to come into Smash Hits pages. So, you know, we can tell Dave Rimmer, obviously, great writer at the time. And so just a knockoff phrase like describing Scritti Politti as the one-time do-it-yourself doodlers. You know, the use of alliteration is really good. There was one earlier. I'm just trying to see where it was now. It's just really playful and engaging. But these are also people. You know, these are good writers who others might think they're kind of dumbing down by writing about pop, but in fact. They're elevating it, you know, and the way that Mark and Dave Hepworth and all the others, how Mike Stand would write about pop, you know. You know, it was just really smart and crafted, you know. It wasn't just chuck away. It was making kids kind of read some well-crafted one-liners or whatever. And obviously, Dave wrote, like Punk Never Happened, which was a fantastic book at the time as well, which really kind of encapsulates this whole particular time in the pop world.
Well, you do get the feeling that, you know, often I think David Hepworth had said when he was riding the carousel that singles reviews could be a bit of a chore. It'd be a bit like you'd be given a carrier bag full of 30 singles. It's like, review those. It's like, oh, and you groan. But it feels like some care and attention has been put into this. He's not just throwing it away. He's actually, well, come on then, let's enjoy this. Let's see what you got, kind of thing. But yeah, I did notice, he's judging them all on their danceability. And along with how he judges the Police, I tried to dance, but dozed off. He says about Randy Crawford, Secret Combination, which he was playing on the playlist. I thought, is this Sade? This is a bit early for Sade. Yeah. It's very Your Love Is King. But he says to that one, no dance factor to speak of. And the single that I most enjoyed, I think, from this lot, and it was particularly because the review of it made me think, oh, this one sounds like it might be interesting. Bumble and the Bees, not a very appealing or promising kind of name of the track, called Fools. A reggae band without a drummer, but with a violinist. Sounds unlikely. Sounds great. Ex-Steel Pulse single Michael Riley bangs a bass drum and sings. The rest of them construct an interesting, soft-textured sound. Genuinely unusual, intelligent, and well worth a listen. And I agree.
Yeah.
There we are.
Okay. Gets the Galloway thumbs up.
It does indeed. Well, we've dealt with the singles now. Let's have a look at the albums reviews. And albums in this issue from OMD, Lynx, Gillan, Elvis Costello, Martha and the Muffins, Vice Squad, Bauhaus, Rex Smith, Rachel Sweet, Imagination, Joy Division, The Meteors, and Bad Manners. Lots of high-scoring reviews. But any standouts for you gentlemen there? Nige, any albums there? Or just the reviews themselves?
Well, the two albums that would stand out there are Almost Blue, the Costello country album, but also OMD's Architecture and Morality. That would have been this issue where I would have been aware of the album itself. They'd had Souvenir and Joan of Arc had been hits by then, Maid of Orleans about this time. I like the idea of OMD because of that album specifically, because they were pop and they were pop stars, but the music was quite soundscapey, It was the sound of a kind of mist-shrouded Mersey estuary as opposed to, anything bright and colourful. And yet they were still playing the pop game completely. We'll see later, there's a nice colour photo you can cut out and stick on your wall of them. But I thought they were really quite interesting then, and I like the idea of, my tastes were kind of maturing a bit then. So stuff that wasn't just bright pop, verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. That it was, quite more atmospheric, I guess. But yeah, Almost Blue as well. This would be a gateway drug to people getting into country music. The people who wouldn't have heard of George Jones, but have heard of Elvis Costello, get that. And then, in the way that Dylan did a similar job with old blues guys or old folk guys, they are the stepping stone to allow people the portal to allow people to kind of get more, get a bit deeper into the music. So yeah, that would work as well. But one particular, my favourite line of the entire magazine is here. We said how Fred Deller was a bit negative with the two-tone stuff earlier. It's negative again here, but some great lines. So this is his closing lines for the review of Bauhaus's Mask. Mostly it's back to the catacombs, shadows and fluttering bats. Fetch the cross and garlic, Edgar. We may have visitors tonight. I just thought that's just brilliant. You wouldn't expect that in a teen mag, I think it's just really again, it's the writers having so much fun with what they can do, they're not straitjacketed in a way that NME writers would have to write in a very pseudo-academic, pseudo-poncy way. They can just have fun. And I just love that, fetch the cross and garlic, Edgar. That's brilliant. We may have visitors tonight. 4 out of 10. Yeah.
I do feel sorry for Bauhaus. They didn't half take a kick in back in the day, and still do. People don't remember them fondly, but I've always liked them. But there you go.
And again, it's one of those bands like someone like Gillan as well that would always have a heavy presence in Smash Hits pages and Susie and the Banshees and everyone. We've got the Meteors gets as long a review as Lynx does. As Imagination does. It was still that very open-minded sort of, it's a fortnightly mag. They need to fill it with stuff as well. If they, if they narrow what they're covering, then they've got limited amount of pages they can go to. But yes, I find it really fascinating just the breadth of stuff that they did include.
I was surprised with Bev Hillier's review of Body Talk by Imagination, because we know Bev as being the writer who really loves sort of disco and soul and stuff. She gives it a good score. She gives it 8 out of 10. But she says, if the 45's won you over, then this debut album is sure to appeal. It's all there. The haunting melodies, tinkling piano and voices that reach out for notes that others wouldn't dare try for. Their sound is unique, the material is classy, and overall the album is faultless. And then she sounds like an old nana. Why they ruin it all with those silly outfits, I'll never know. Still, listen, don't look. 8 out of 10. I mean, you know, kind of watching them on Top of the Pops and their outfits, it's just fascinating, isn't it? I mean, they just always look so kind of camp and hilarious and really having a good time, you know. I was surprised that she put that in there. I thought she'd have quite liked the way they look, but I guess not.
Yeah, I think it was probably easy to dismiss Imagination back in the day because of how they looked and how they kind of draped themselves around the Top of the Pop stage and stuff. But listening back to them now, their albums are fantastic, really, really good. Yeah, I just didn't recognise at the time just how damn good they were. So yeah, she's right to give it 8 out of 10. And I don't have any issue with them kind of flaunting themselves around on top of the
wear them
Pops.
outfits around the house, don't
exactly.
you?
That's how I do my cleaning. Yeah. Scrubbing the kitchen floor in my Lee John outfit.
Yeah, Lee John, of course.
John.
Yeah.
It's the review for Joy Division Still, which, if you're a Joy Division aficionado, you'll know as the posthumous release, I guess we can call it, the double album that collects together sort of rarities and the last gig, which I think is probably from a rough cassette recording recorded at Birmingham in 1980. And it's a hard old listen. I do have the album. I had a big Joy Division phase when I was probably about 14 years old. So about seven years or so after this issue came out. And somebody gave me the Still album. And I think I've only ever listened to it all the way through once. It was just, it's just such hard work getting through it, particularly the version of Sister A that lasts about 3 days on there. But Red Star gives it 9 out of 10. So...
Well, Still was the first Joy Division record and possibly the only one I owned because it totally put me off them as well.
Yeah.
Kids at our school who weren't mods, who were what we call bleakos, wearing the grey coats, and I sided with them. But when they started Tipexing Joy Division on their pencil cases, going, I've seen their name in Smashes. Refer back to that. 9 out of 10, this must be good. And just, again, I must have played it once. And, I probably gave it away in the end. Because it just totally put me off them. It really did. I thought it was not a good advert for them. And this is the thing, in the way that it can introduce you to really great stuff, it can also redirect you to the stuff that you don't want to listen to. So it performs a service both ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll leave the album reviews there. Moving on to our next feature, but before we get to that, who do we encounter? Only an advert for UB bloody 40.
Every issue.
They're in there somewhere. And it's the dub version. UB40 in dub, present arms. So that's what's lurking in a UB40 style in this issue of hits. And then we get to one of the features that's mentioned on the cover of the mag. It's a Q&A with Julian Cope. Now Julian is pictured on a bed, and I can't decide whether this is his bedroom, whether it's a hotel room, and what's because there's a heck of a lot of photos here.
Now, I've studied these pictures back in the day, including the little portable telly in the background.
Yeah.
But it's quite a chintzy eiderdown. It's not. This is pre-duvet days. That's when they were called eiderdowns. It's quite chintzy, and I thought, is this his bedroom or is this a B&B? And in there, he mentions how his bedroom is dark, and this is definitely not dark. So I'm of the mind that he's possibly on tour or down in London, staying at some chintzy B&B, and they persuaded that he can do the pictures there, because I can't imagine he would have that. Look at that. It's kind of a patchwork eiderdown, isn't it? It's in black and white, but I'm seeing lots of pinks and lots of kind of pastel-y shades amongst that thing.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Because where was it? The Columbia Hotel that he always used to stay in London. I think mentioned in Head On. So I wondered if it might be there. But yeah, he's lots of photos of him surrounded by the fan letters with his hair cut rather short. rather shockingly, and barefooted as well.
On the subject of haircut, I mean, they mentioned it's a drastic haircut. I remember taking this copy of the magazine downstairs to my mum, bearing in mind I looked like the Milky Bar kid at the time, don't forget, saying, I want my haircut like that. And bearing in mind, she was the one who probably cut my hair at that time. It was like, no, was the polite answer. But I literally remember, this is, of all the Smash Hits features, this is the one that I can remember so vividly, and remember particular questions now without having looked at the magazine again. Just because it was the first magazine I had of theirs, so I'd read it probably more than I read any other edition. But Cope was, I'd like Reward, I'd like Treason, and I think just on the basis of this, I thought, yes, they are going to be my new favourite band, because ELO's road has run out for me, and this is a bit cooler, and he's kind of not pop, but he's still good enough for Smash Hits. And he's also an ad for The Face in this issue, and he's on the cover of that as well. So he's someone who's, I should be graduating to him. I should be moving up. So I jumped fully on board the Cope train at this point, definitely.
Kind of like you were saying before about the new pop stars coming from that kind of quite arty post-punk world, and Julian's another example, isn't he? And he fully embraced. He was a proper pop star for some time, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
We kind of forget now because he's quite an outsider figure these days.
And knowing what his hair's like these days, I imagine that was probably the last haircut he ever had 40 years ago.
But yeah, great hair as well. That, isn't it? That's a lovely haircut. I'd have loved to have hair like that at that age.
So I think it was featured in Smash Hits quite a lot, particularly during the Teardrop Exposed days. I think probably because he gave good copy. He was photogenic.
They still had some hits.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they were girls at our best on the fringes. They, had a couple of, well, I think Reward got 6 or 7, I think, Treason about 12. They're having good
Passionate
top
Friend.
20, Passionate Friend. So at least 3 top 20 smashes.
Dancing on grand pianos on top of the pops.
Yeah.
On acid.
Talking about drugs and Smash Hits and the World Collide, and I just wanted to read a short bit from Mark Ellen's wonderful Rockstar Stole My Life, where he talks about doing some drugs with Julian Cope. Fancy line of chop? Julian Cope asked before I'd even taken my coat off. The damp yellow speed had made its way to Eric's club in Matthew Street too, and the band were having a pre-interview nose-up. Cope, their charismatic leader, had wide eyes, big boots, a flying jacket and a grin like a suspension bridge. He was tipping huge conical mounds of chisel onto a plastic tabletop. Yeah, why not? Seemed rude not to. But this made our home fare look like talcum powder. I turned pale and began perspiring. Anyone for a top-up? Cope suggested. I hoofed down another, so I followed suit. Waves of adrenaline surged through my body, and my hair stood on end. One more for luck. The teardrops were seasoned consumers of eye-watering stimulants and seemed barely affected by it. But 3 dibs of this and my heart started rattling my rib cage. Sweat stains the size of Shropshire appeared on my shirt, and I'd lost the use of one leg. We filled both sides of the cassette with fizzing gibberish, and I sprang back to my hotel room and lay vibrating on the bed, staring at the ceiling till 9 in the morning, teeth gnashing like a steam hammer, brain mushed to guacamole. I creaked my way painfully to the station, feeling as though my internal organs had been taken out, pummeled with a milk bottle, and then put back in the wrong places. It was an omen. Drugs and I didn't seem to get along, and I never took any ever again.
Fizzing gibberish is a great phrase. As his nose up as well. I love that. Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
This is such a great article, isn't it? It kind of reminded me of the kind of thing that Q magazine would do at a later stage. There's kind of Q&As, get readers to send questions in, and it's a lovely way of kind of engaging with the readership, isn't it? And kind of getting them in there. And there's some really good questions. I really liked what's your first childhood memory? I think my favourite one was, do you still look in car mirrors to check if your hair is all right? And he said he does, and it's, what did he call it? Mirror hopping.
Mirror hopping,
yeah. Which he used in the lyric. If you worship Scott Walker so much, why do you say that you would never like to meet him in real life? And there's also a lot of talk about Toxters, because this is around the time of the Toxters riots, so obviously the readers and fans know that he lives around there, so he talks quite a lot about that. So it kind of encompasses all things. It kind of very much the Smash Hits kind of thing, the magazine would later evolve into sort of quite surface level stuff, but then also a lot deeper stuff around politics and so on.
Completely. Well, the question preceding the first Toxteth one is, can you suck your big toe? I mean, what other publication would segue so screechingly between those questions? You know, I think that's amazing. You know, can you suck your big toe? What about race relations and urban violence? And you know, it's extraordinary. One question that I remember so clearly was, do you prefer red or green apples? And his answer is green, defo. Now, at the time, because Brookside was still 3 years off. Oh, no, not 3 years off. But, it's 82. Yeah. I wasn't that familiar with the Liverpudlian vernacular. And once Brookside came along, I knew about defo, I knew about busies and everything else. At this time, I thought he was just being really, really rude. Because if you're defo in the school playground, you know.
Right, yeah.
So I was going, green defo. It's like, well, why would they know this? Who would have asked you this before? It's, you know, it's like, defo, how many times do I have to say this? And so, despite I thought, oh, he could be my hero. That one question was like, oh, but is he that nice? Because he's just dead defo today. And it wasn't until, you know, the likes of Damon Grant and Gizmo Hawkins came along that I realised what defo actually meant, you know, to someone who lived in Sefton Park. So there we are.
I just noticed that we talked in the RSVP section earlier on about someone hating medleys, and there's a question almost referencing all the same bands. What do you think of the new medley craze, e.g. Star Sound, Tight Fit, Giddy Park, etc.? So it was obviously very kind of current, and people were thinking about it.
It was the Jive Bunny of its time, definitely. Yeah.
No, Julian wasn't a fan. He says, I think it's the musical abomination of all time. I think it's disgusting. I think it's so crap. I don't even think people like Tenpole and Squeeze doing joke versions is reasonable. So
I read that, and I wasn't aware that Squeeze had done a joke version. Maybe it's an album track that I'm not aware of.
It's a B-side, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Like a hits medley kind of thing.
I can't. I have got it somewhere, but I can't remember.
No, okay.
I do have it. Yeah, I like this question. Now that you're officially a Sting challenger, Julian, oh God, does this worry you, and do you think it could affect the quality of your music? That's from Janet in Bishop Stortford. He answers, no, because I've got this self-destructive force in me, which cuts my hair, means that there's not too many problems about that. Like when everything becomes too serious, that side of it, I usually do something that hams the whole thing up. I think that perfectly, he's very self-aware of what he's like and how he will kind of, self-destruct or destroy these things when it's going in a direction that he doesn't like.
That's quite a prescient kind of little quote, that, isn't it?
Most definitely, yeah.
Interesting. That's a strange phrase as well, isn't it? Sting challenger.
A Sting challenger, yeah. Because you have to stop and think, what do you mean by that? Oh, right, okay.
Like a pop
plays
star.
bass.
Yeah, it's like
plays bass, blondish sort of hair, good looking, singer.
But it doesn't exist as a thing. No, itself.
No wonder Julian was like, oh God, don't want to be doing that. But really entertaining article. This, I mean, like we said, he was always good copy. He was always interesting. He was lively. Had a good sense of humour. You just felt he was always on, Julian Cope, wasn't he? And ready for whatever they threw at him.
And another thing that I liked in this that kind of pushed me towards him was that a couple of weeks before this had been school holidays, the half term, and we didn't go on many holidays as a kid, but one we did do was go and stay with friends of my mum's up in the Lake District. And I remember going from Euston, taking the train up to Grange over Sands and Ulverston, and it went through Tamworth, and I'd never heard of Tamworth before. And then 2 weeks later, we find out Julian Cope grew up in Tamworth. I've driven here, stopping at Tamworth services as well, just to pay homage. So that made it, Tamworth, I've heard of that place. Because at that time, I only knew Britain, England, in terms of football teams, you know, which were the sainted 92 Football League teams. And so that's how I knew my geography. And so, what is Tamworth and where is it? And the fact that I'd gone through it, and so I could kind of connect with him, that was another extremely shallow way of picking my pop stars at the age of 12.
It's nice as well that he references, someone asked, what groups do you like from present times? Miranda from Whitstable, and he says Joy Division, The Fall, early pop group. And he says that he really likes The Sweetest Girl by Scritti Politti as well. So there's some nice little pointers there.
I don't want to think that I've done too much research on this, but that's the Miranda from Whitstable is Miranda Harvey. Now, Miranda Harvey is the wife of Ian Rankin, but I've done some research and it's not her. She was Ian Rankin's wife was in the 4th year at Edinburgh University by then, but that would have been really nice.
That would have been amazing.
That's the kind of little rabbit holes that some authors kind of distract themselves from writing. Like sitting down and actually writing books by going, I wonder if, and then spending 2 or 3 hours on the internet, coming to an absolute dead end and wasting 3 hours of their lives. But no, the Miranda Harvey from Whitstable is not, unless she was still a smash hits reader at the age of 22 whilst at Edinburgh University. And the one other slight bit of trivia kings like us. So we found out in that piece that Julian Cope is the cousin of the former Wales rugby captain and British Lion Brian Price. And if you live in Newport, Brian Price was the captain of Newport Rugby Club when they beat the All Blacks famously back in the late 60s. So that's a nice little flick. To someone who writes about sport and music, when these two worlds they coalesce sometimes. It's quite nice. So yeah, I learned that yesterday. That's good.
Yeah, I do like the last photo, which is the smallest one of them all, because it's quite a photo-heavy piece of Julian sort of pondering the questions and exasperated and things. And the last one is just him laughing manically. Eyes closed, mouth open, the caption underneath it, "Wah!"
Pete Wiley.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
Indeed. But also above that it says, all those readers whose questions are quoted will be receiving an autographed copy of the new Teardrop single as soon as it's released.
Fantastic.
I wonder if they
And they did have one more single, I think, after this stage. So they weren't in existence for too much longer, by the sort of middle of '82, I think, weren't they? So, but yes, so he was my new favourite pop star to the extent that I had to then pick. So I got hold of the Kilimanjaro album, the kind of reissue one that put Reward on it, had the zebra Mount Kilimanjaro on it. Got that. Got Wilder for Christmas that year. And then when my English teacher said, you need to do a poetry project and pick a poet and decipher their poems. And I said, can we do musicians? Can we do... So I very, very pretentiously at the age of 13 did an English project on the lyrics of Wilder, which... at the age of 50, I still wouldn't understand. I suspect Julian Cope didn't know what the hell he was writing at the time, if Mark Ellen's tales are true. So the notion of the 12-year-old, and she's going, I remember the response was, yes, quite an ambitious subject, C minus. I didn't know, it's all about Layla Khaled and I didn't know who the hell anyone was. 7 Views of Jerusalem. How am I going to dissect what the hell that song's about? Yeah, so, really pretentious, but was fully on the Cope train for a while until we find out, and I found out they'd split up on Saturday morning kids telly, a programme that, I can't remember the name of it now, the one that Tommy Boyd and Isla Sinclair used to produce, to present. And she used to do the music news and like a kind of newsread thing, and she says, the Teardrop Explodes have done that. They have exploded. I remember my brother pissing himself with laughter because they were my favourite group and going, you nailed your colours to this band for 6 months and they've gone. But yes, I'd still, it's still great pop music, great pop,
absolutely,
but not pop, but music, great psychedelic edge to it, and I love them, and some of the C86 bands end up, Mighty Lemon Drops sound very, very similar, very clear lineage there, I think.
Not for the first time on this podcast, Rod Stewart has left me feeling a little queasy. We've come to his lyrics, Tonight I'm Yours, Don't Hurt Me. I just wanted to read some out and
just mentioning poetry
let them marinate them, in your brain. I can tell by the look in your eyes you've been bored for a long, long time. You need love, and so do I. I think he's after a bit more than love, to be honest, Rod. Let's turn it all around. I don't want an everlasting thing. I don't care if I see you again. So grab your coat and, honey, tell your friends you won't be home. You won't be home, you won't be home 3 times. It's gone from a bit cheeky to like just sounding a bit threatening 3 times there. I don't really want to challenge you, marry you or remember you. No one was thinking about marriage at all there, but I just want to make love to you for 24 hours or more.
Or more.
Or more, yeah. And then he says, tomorrow morning we won't cry. You go your way, honey, and I'll go mine. I'm the one who didn't waste your time. Remember me this way. And if you never see my face again, think of me as a permanent friend. You're more likely to be remembered as someone who's maybe given you an STD, but there we go. The one who loved you like a hurricane, then disappeared. So, yeah, good time, Rod. Just loving them and leaving them. Yeah. Making love with them for 24 hours or more.
24 hours, but then saying the next morning, bugger off. His grasp of time and mathematics isn't the most acute. But
he's not consistent, is he, there at all?
Not at all. Did you watch the video?
I did. I felt grubby after.
Yeah, it's lots of scantily clad ladies. I mean, bikinis is probably the most that they're wearing in it, or cavorting in and around a swimming pool. I'm guessing it's LA, man. Rod and the band performing to them, and you do feel rather grubby watching it. I mean, I don't know whether Top of the Pops would have shown that at the time or not. It certainly wouldn't appear now, but. Yeah. I don't know if you're aware, there's a channel, it's certainly on Freeview, I don't know of any other TV service, but there's a channel called That's TV that crops up. It shows lots of comedy repeats, and the sort of comedy repeats that even ITV3 won't touch. So we're talking like the Benny Hill show and things like that. But they have lots of music video programmes on there. They'll just like stick an hour on, 80s hits and stuff. It's obviously just, cheap filler just to fill up the schedules. And I occasionally, if it's one of the music video hours that they've got on, I'll occasionally just flick it on and have a little look. And this video came on, and I was like, oh my God, they're actually showing this on television. But then again, like I say, they show the Benny Hill show on there. So that video is sort of like where the worlds of Benny Hill and Rod Stewart collide.
If only you'd sped up and been chasing them around the edge of the swimming pool.
But yeah, if it had been doing the yakety sax thing.
Yeah. Now, I would have watched that.
Yeah.
That would be good.
In fact, I might speed the video up and put that music on.
Do like a remix version.
Yeah, stick it on YouTube. There we go.
Okay, we move on from Rod, who's left a bit of a funny taste in our mouths.
And a bit of a rash as well.
Yeah, woo. Move on to far more artistic and well-mannered young gentleman, that Japan. Dave Rimmer has gone round to see them. He's like he's visiting Japan's Crib. MTV Cribs was a few years away, but he's popping round to Mick's flat. Dave says, arriving outside Mick's flat, just to see David roll up in a car, we're ushered upstairs and shown into a living room strewn with Mick's sculptures and curios picked up in Japan. Yuka, a Japanese friend of Mick's, serves up scented tea in thin china cups. All of a sudden, it seems like some horribly appropriate Japanese tea ceremony, a little piece of Tokyo just off the Gloucester Road. Though the feeling soon passes, Japan looms large in the conversation. Their first album went gold there, and the band found themselves selling out the 11,000-seater Budokan in Tokyo for 2 nights, while back home they were still having difficulty getting gigs in sordid little venues like London's Marquee. They're so popular there that when Mick was invited to do a sculpture exhibition in London's Hamilton Gallery, the news was broadcast on Japanese national TV. I wonder whether their Japanese success, which keeps them in Reddy's for about 8 months of the year while they slog away at other markets, had anything to do with their name. The opposite seems to be true. Their record company in Japan didn't want to release their album at first until they changed their name. I can't imagine, Mick remarks dryly, a band from Japan called England doing very well in this country. Which would have been great. I'd loved it if Shona Knife had called themselves England and then done an album called Visions of Scotland. That's kind of the parallel to draw there. But I was amazed how long Japan had been going. It took us back their first gig in here, had been 1974. So by this stage in 81, they were kind of old hands at being a band.
And they're on to their last album.
Yeah. Which is amazing. And obviously, like, the hits are about to begin. Ghost is only about 6 months away from this. So this is just as they're about to kind of go stratospheric, when they were only stratospheric for a relatively short time. But were you much of a fan, Nige?
I was just going to say, that gave Sylvian sort of 8 years to perfect that Brian Ferry impersonation, didn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't a big fan of them too much. Odd singles, Ghosts, I like Night Porter. But yeah, again at school, a lot of guys had the Sylvian look. The ones who weren't the mods. Some of the Bleakos kind of went into kind of Japan. A lot of sun in the hair. Trying to get away with a little bit of makeup in class, or on non-uniform day at least. I wasn't that great because I wasn't a great fan of Brian Ferry and Roxy Music. So the voice, I couldn't get beyond the voice for a lot of stuff, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
so
futurist Roxy Music, weren't they?
Yeah, and the voice just feels too affected to me. Just sing properly. Sorry.
Sing properly or don't sing at all.
Yeah, exactly. So I just found it just a bit affected and didn't quite get it. And I also had that feeling, and then seeing the comment, and maybe Mick's comment is where it came from, about the fact that it's a weird name. It's a weird name for a band. And there are, there's lots of bands who are named after places. But it seems very strange that they would still be popular and selling out 2 nights at 11,000 people at the Budokan.
I know.
It's just wow, it didn't put off them, but it's the weirdest thing to be the name of a country that you're then big in. The whole thing of a Japanese band being called England, totally. It's really, really weird to me. But yes, and the name was an ad hoc name apparently, and then
so
stuck.
they just made it up, and then that was that.
Yeah, but interesting bands. They're certainly a fascinating band, even if I didn't appreciate them musically too much.
I was watching a few of their videos today, and I suddenly thought, there's a bit of elements of, obviously, Roxy Music, but also a bit kind of Duran Duran, but if Nick Rhodes had been the lead singer. Because he's a good-looking lad, isn't he, David? And they were, I guess, a bit less willing to play the game, a bit older than Duran Duran. So although they were big, it was a short time, maybe a bit like Julian Cope. They were happy to be pop stars, but not to go like the whole hog and do, I guess, huge tours of America and the whole MTV thing. They were always a bit more aloof and reserved, weren't they? You got the feeling with them that they played the game a little bit, but not. They wouldn't go the whole way. I mean, Si, obviously you're a huge Roxy Music and Brian Ferry fan. How did you get on with Japan?
I liked them, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
I've always thought that David Sylvian was like, the voice of Brian Ferry, the hair of David Bowie, circa Young Americans. But there is a part here where they are talking about Roxy Music, and my screen's gone off. So, Gavin, could you please do the honours? Just reading that little bit out, please.
So, David's talking about some of the other music that he likes, and he says he's had some records given to him by the record label Virgin. They gave him Devo, John Foxx and Human League, and he liked the Human League one the best. And then it said, and while there's still some truth in the old appraisal of them as a lavish Roxy rip-off, especially with David's Ferry-ish vocals, the more you listen to any particular track, the less true that seems. But what the hell? Anyone who bothers to listen to their forthcoming single, Visions of China, and the very Chinese-influenced album that follows it, is going to be pleasantly surprised. I was.
Yeah, because I think they did go to some lengths sometimes to deny that they were sounding like Roxy Music and things, but they used the same producers and the same string arrangers that Brian Ferry had used on some of his solo albums in the mid to late 70s. So they were clearly looking at, who did those records, looking at the credits of them and getting those people, specifically those people, to work with them.
As opposed to going in absolutely the direction, finding those names and not hiring them whatsoever.
Yeah.
All the other engineers and producers they could call upon, but yes. Slight contradiction there, maybe, yeah.
One other thing that I liked in this, David talks about, he says, when we started, our PR people tried to get us on television, but people said we were too visual, which was a pretty ridiculous statement. I mean, being too visual for television, that's quite something, isn't it?
Huge achievement there.
Yeah.
Well done.
So there we are, Japan, too visual for television. I didn't really like them that much at the time. I think I found them a little bit too arch and a bit too...
Just cold.
Cold, yeah. I like them more now, I must say, and and some of the David Sylvian solo stuff I've really enjoyed. But I think because, as we said, they've been around quite a while by this point anyway, so they didn't really feel like part of the brand new pop stuff that was happening. They already kind of felt like the old guard a bit, So,
yeah, but it does mention in the piece a bit like, that the times have sort of caught up with them. So if you think about the Quiet Life album, that was 1979. And the song wasn't a hit then, wasn't a hit until 81.
Yeah.
So, and that's a couple of years ahead of Duran Duran, you've already mentioned. But listen to the intro of Quiet Life, listen to the intro of Planet Earth, and tell me they are not one and the same.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I guess they were kind of slightly ahead of the curve. And how influential were Roxy Music and David Bowie on the whole neuromantic thing in terms of the boys? I think it was one of the other issues.
You're outside.
Yeah, just having a bit of a ferry there. No, but it does mention. I think there was a review that we encountered maybe a couple of issues ago, saying that singing through clenched teeth makes you sound like Brian Ferry. And I guess it kind of does.
Yeah.
Open
your gob, Sylvia.
Yeah.
There we go.
Enunciate, boy.
Enunciate.
We come now to the letters page, and what are the burning issues of October 1981? Well, one little letter here. Dear Tiswas, the answer to your competition is half a pint of vinegar and a Kojak wig. Please send me my prize of 2 self-adhesive Shakin' Stevens rubber kneecaps. And that's from Ruth in Basildon. It says, P.S. Have I got the right address? Nige, any letters there that represent the burning issues of the day?
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked earlier about how, someone was moaning about fashion back in, of the age of the typical reader. And there's a couple of letters here that got the whiff of parents writing in about them. There's one about the ubiquity of young men wearing makeup. Quote, millions of blokes are walking around looking like they've taken a nap in the middle of the road when the council were retouching the white line. So reference to the AMP people there. And that was David, Essex, brackets, that's David from Essex, is the editorial comment. Then another one from Karen Clover, a, quote, anti-poser from Birmingham, railing against tiny-minded zombies following the latest fashion trends. Can they really only afford to have half of their hair cut? Why on earth are boys turning to frilly blouses? Which just has the whiff of parents writing in, seeing what their kids are reading and writing in. And then we have an actual letter from a, quote, worried 34-year-old mum from Mansfield, for whom the letters page is her first port of call. So we've got someone who loves the mag so much, and a little secret pleasure from there. And one other letter that struck me was a letter responding to obviously prior complaints in a previous issue about the price rise from 35p to 38p, a massive inflation-busting 3p hike, and someone pointing out how the magazine is now bigger, and so the average price per page has actually been reduced. Now, this letter is signed Claire Tennant Clapham, and as a magazine veteran, I know the practice does go on of when you don't have enough letters for the magazine, that staff writers write them under more pseudonym stuff, Gav. And this one is signed Claire Tennant of Clapham, and you suddenly think, hold on, there was a very famous future pop star on the editorial team with the surname Tennant, could quite possibly live in Clapham. Is it a thinly disguised pseudonym? Trying to, put out the company line, go, no, actually, it's much better for they fairly for money. But no. In fact, it's not. I've gone down another wormhole, another rabbit hole, another dead end. Neil Tennant didn't join until the year after. Okay. But yes, that had the whiff of someone internally writing that letter. I think of people moaning that it's gone up a full 3p, and that's 6 half-p chews that someone can no longer have every fortnight.
To be fair, it's over a 10% increase, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, less
almost,
than. Less than.
Sorry, just less than.
But yeah. Almost more than, but less than. Yeah. Okay.
I don't do maths, so I'll just leave it to it. Sort out amongst yourselves.
I've embarrassed myself again there. A letter that stuck out to me was about, we're in Sheffield as we're recording this, and it was about the Sheffield scene. Referencing a previous article, while I enjoyed your article on the Human League immensely, there were some omissions to the beginner's guide. Ian Marsh and Martin Ware were also involved in groups called the Studs and the perhaps aptly named Musical Vomit. And it also mentions Cabaret Voltaire, Clock DVA, and it's very kind of train spottery kind of letter from John Donkersley and Jason Tabiner in Streatham. So I got in touch with Roger Quayle from Clock DVA, from the excellent podcast My Life in the Mosh of Ghosts, which I think we mentioned in a recent edition of Giddy Carousel. So we're both fans of that podcast. Yeah. Well worth listening to. And I sent him a copy of this. I just wanted to fact check it, see if they've got it right. And he said, yes, that reads true. AD. Is it AD or Addy?
Addy, whichever.
Okay.
Probably answers to both.
Addy, that'd be Addy Newton, and Judd both contributed to Music for Stowaways by BEF. So they've got the facts right. However, I found something, well, they got it wrong. So Jason and Gary, who reckon they know all the facts, they talk about a band called Salon Graph that Ian Burden was part of. And he said their only vinyl is a track on the compilation Bouquet of Steel LP called something like Glenn Miller and his contemporaries meet the musical Janines with a packet of jelly babies on a Caribbean monolith. Well, Gary and Jason, that's not correct, because it is actually Glenn Miller and his musical intimacies meets the musical Janines uptown with a packet of jellies and a Caribbean monolith. You fools. So yeah, pop that in your pipe and smoke it. We move on. There's an advert for, as Nige mentioned earlier on, the issue 17 of The Face with Julian Cope on the front. There's some tour dates there. Flock of Seagulls are playing. Who else we got? Got Crass, Dr. Feelgood, The Go-Go's, Haircut 100, ELO, who obviously Nige wouldn't be going to see after this point. The Damned are playing with UK Subs and The Exploited. And then on Nights Out, we've got Mark Ellen going to Bracknell Sports Centre to see you too, and I thought this was quite interesting. I looked up Bracknell Sports Centre in Berkshire. It's an entertainment complex located at Bagshot Road in Bracknell, Berkshire, and this is from the Wikipedia page, because I thought it was kind of an unusual venue, really. I don't remember hearing about it before. It said it was particularly popular as a concert venue between the late 60s and the early 80s, hosting bands such as, this is quite the roll call, Iron Maiden, U2, Genesis twice, first time supporting Arthur Brown's Kingdom Come, Free, the Jeff Beck Group, Madness, Thin Lizzy, Traffic, Roxy Music with Brian Eno.
I've got that bootleg.
Thought you might. Status Quo, Captain Beefheart, Dr. Feelgood, Wishbone Ash twice, Stiff Little Fingers, Motorhead, Hawkwind 5 times, Stranglers, Groundhogs, Rory Gallagher, Focus and Yes. So yeah, quite the venue.
But its most conspicuous contribution to popular culture is, of course, happened 5 years before this. It's where Superstars used to be filmed at the Bracknell Sports Centre. It's where Kevin Keegan wobbled and came off his bike and took all the skin off his arm and back.
Oh my lord!
That's to the pre-music sports fan of me. That's what Bracknell Sports Centre meant to me. Kevin Keegan's heading shoulder first across the cinders.
Ooh!
Wow. Watch it. He's wobbling for about 40 yards. It's like he's never ridden a bike before, and it just comes flying off. It's terrible. But yes, that was Bracknell Sports Centre meant to me.
That's
but I didn't know it was such a venue. But yes, I knew it for its sporting.
Well, there's a good pub quiz question. What links Captain Beefheart and Kevin Keegan?
There we go.
Bracknell Sports Centre. There we go. So a very positive review from Mark. They deliver with the obvious confidence that comes from having several hundred gigs behind you. They're completely in control of their songs and can thus devote all their energies to projecting them right. You can always tell when a band's going down well. The singer chucks a bucket of water over the front row and everyone screams for more. I guess this was quite an early U2. I mean, obviously they've been going for quite a while, but in terms of chart success,
yeah, I mean, not really had any chart success.
No, I think Gloria caught the outer reaches of the charts, didn't it? But
second album's just come out, so it wouldn't be really until the beginning of '83 with New Year's Day.
New Year's Day and that first
album.
Yeah, because I remember the top 10 of January. One of the weeks of January '83 is Wild Story of the Blues is number 3. New Year's Day is there, and Echo and the Bunnymen's what will it be? The Cutter.
Yeah,
were all in and that having kind of jumped onto this kind of the poppy end of the post-punk thing with Teardrop Explodes just a month or two earlier. So I'm like, oh, these bands are good. Maybe I've made the right decision here.
Yeah,
and so I was fully onto Echo and the Bunnymen by then, and War as well.
You much of a U2 fan?
U2, yeah, I had October and War, yeah, went to see them in '87 at the NEC with Micro Disney supporting. I was probably the only person in the entire NEC that had heard of them, let alone could sing along. So I was right at the back, 2 rows from the back of the NEC, and he just came out, and Carl Coggan came on stage and goes, "We're Micro Disney and we're shit." which 12,000 or 11,999 other people seem to agree with.
Yeah.
Then in the break they played old Beatles hits and everyone's doing Mexican waves and singing along. It was the most bizarre thing to go from Micro Disney to 12,000 people singing, saw us standing there and going absolutely crazy batshit. But anyway, happy days.
And that brings us to the end of the mag.
It does bring us to the end of the mag. So I'm just interested to know how long you stuck with Smash Hits for.
So I probably certainly 82, then 83 I got into the Face, possibly from ads again in the back of there. I went to the Face before I did the NME, so just it was colourful and glossy, and I was a paper boy by then, and I'd nabbed the one copy that would come into the shop. And then got into the NME from that. So probably a couple of years of Smash Hits, and then went into what supposedly grown-up stuff. Really pretentious Face stuff that I didn't know what the hell it meant. But by then I was happy to be pretentious. So.
Would you have put up any of the posters on your wall at all?
Well, one of these I did. In fact, the Beatles one that we haven't kind of lingered on. The shot from the video of Paperback Writer that they did, wasn't it? One of the first kind of pop videos. Them all amongst the undergrowth with Rickenbackers. Yeah, I had that on my wall in the bedroom. I can see exactly that was just under the window. I had that, and then maybe it's some sort of determinism that I then became a paperback writer. Who knows?
Yay.
Who knows? Maybe that's the reason for it all. Was this, the lyrics of Paperback Writer just the last thing I saw before I turned the light out every night, and that kind of moulded me subconsciously. I don't know.
Like a mantra.
Yes, yeah. It's kind of,
Dear Sir or Madam, will you read my book? It's about C86. Will you take a look?
Hey, there we go. Very good.
But what's it like? I mean, obviously, with the C86 books, he revisited, the mid 80s to the late 80s with that period. What's it been like going back a few years earlier and going into sort of like your more formative years for yourself?
Yeah, it's more formative. So I think things stuck a bit more. I would have more memories. I can recall, certain letters in Smash Hits, certain, interviews like the Julian Cope ones. So I think they stick more because I was only 12 at the time. By the time I'm kind of 15, 16, there's lots of other distractions. And so I couldn't, reading The Enemy in 85, 86, I couldn't really tell you any particular features necessarily that stuck out. I could tell you about the singles that got stuck to the front, the 7-inch singles they used to put out, and the tapes that I'd send off for. But in terms of the actual editorial, probably a lot less. It's just more that they were kind of wayfinders saying, hey, there's new albums coming out for this band, that band. And by that stage, you're kind of deluged because you're listening to Janice Long, you're listening to John Peel. And so it's a lot more coming at you. Whereas Smash Hits, even though we're talking about the wider, the people who are interviewed are, Toya being in that particular edition about 40 times, you're probably able to concentrate a lot more and have a good idea of all these, more in-depth knowledge on each one of these. But when a wider world is even opened up to you, then it's probably you have less direct connection. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Thank you. Finally, after 2 hours, that makes perfect sense.
Someone understands me. Well, thank you very much for
Thank you, guys. I've loved it. Loved it. It's a time machine, but it's a carousel. It's a carousel that reverses back in time.
Yeah.
No, it's great fun. Thank you very much. Cheers.
I suppose we should give a final mention to the book.
Oh, you should.
That's out now. Whatever Happened to the C86 Kids, an Indie Odyssey. So that's out wherever you get books from. 9-8 Books have put that one out, and highly recommended from the Giddy Pop Towers.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Damn right.
And thanks to you lot out there for listening. Don't forget to check out our website, giddypoppod.home.blog, where you'll find the links to the issue of Smash Hits that we've been looking at, along with those Spotify and YouTube playlists, so you can enjoy your ride on the carousel to its fullest. And of course, you can check out our previous episodes, playlists and scans, our back issues, if you will, while you're there.
And if you want to support us, you can paint our faces onto the bonnet of a car, or you could buy us a coffee. And you know what to do. Go to ko-fi.com/giddypoppod. And if you feel moved enough to leave us a review, then please do. And come and say hello to us at Giddy Pop Pod on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And if we're in a good mood, we might even say hello back, mightn't we, Si?
Yeah, if we notice the notifications, since social media's gone all a bit crazy. Yeah. I think that's spinning round and round on the carousel at the moment. So we will eventually say hello at some point or other.
We'll do our best.
We'll do our best.
We're two middle-aged men confused by life.
Yeah. So thanks once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Giddy Carousel of Pop. Bye. You can say bye as well, Nige.
Bye.
There we are.